world seems to spin ever faster, our journey may pause to quieten our minds. In T.S. Eliot's words, at the still point of the turning world.
King Charles III has reportedly stunned everyone inside the palace with a sudden, unexpected decision that no one saw coming. In a move that left senior courtiers speechless, he is said to have approved a new royal role for James, Earl of Wessex.
I know she will bring to the demands of her new role the steadfast devotion to duty on which I have come to rely so,
quietly shifting the balance of power within the royal family. But behind the polished exterior, things allegedly took a dramatic turn. Reports suggest Queen Camilla was left emotionally shaken by the decision, with the atmosphere inside the palace becoming tense and uneasy as the full impact of this shock move began to unfold overnight. According to these discussions, the approval is not presented as a dramatic promotion or a formal elevation in rank, but rather as a carefully defined expansion of duties. The role is described as ceremonial and representational in nature, potentially involving attendance at selected state functions, participation in charitable engagements, and limited involvement in youth and community-focused initiatives. In most accounts, it is framed as part of a broader effort to ensure that the monarchy can distribute responsibilities across a slightly wider group of working royals. At the center of these reports is King Charles III, who has spent much of his reign managing both institutional continuity and a gradual reshaping of royal responsibilities. Since becoming monarch, he has been associated with a preference for a leaner, more efficient working royal structure. That approach has generally focused on maintaining a smaller group of senior royals who carry the bulk of public duties, while still allowing space for other family members to contribute in more limited ways when appropriate. In this context, the idea of formalizing a role for James, Earl of Wessex, is being interpreted by commentators as consistent with that approach. James has historically maintained a relatively low public profile compared to other members of the younger generation of the royal family. He has attended official events on occasion, often alongside his parents, but has not been positioned as a central public figure within the institution. Supporters of this approach argue that this kind of arrangement could be practical for the monarchy. With fewer senior working royals available full-time, there is ongoing discussion about how responsibilities are shared, particularly for engagements linked to military patronages, youth organizations, and long-established charitable networks. In that sense, bringing additional family members into a more structured, supporting role is sometimes viewed as a way of easing pressure on the most senior figures. However, even within these discussions, there is an understanding that every adjustment in royal roles tends to carry symbolic weight, regardless of how administrative it may appear on paper. This is particularly true during a period when public attention on the royal family remains high, and every internal decision is quickly interpreted through the lens of broader family dynamics. It is in that environment that Queen Camilla, Queen Consort, is often mentioned in commentary about internal reactions to changes in royal structure. Reports and speculation suggest that any shift in responsibilities or visibility among members of the wider royal family is closely observed by those at the center of the institution, particularly when it intersects with the evolving roles of the next generation. Within these discussions, there is no verified indication of a public disagreement or formal dispute. Instead, what tends to be described is a difference in interpretation about what these structural changes represent. On one hand, they are seen as practical adjustments designed to ensure stability and continuity. On the other, they are sometimes interpreted as signals of shifting influence within the wider family framework. This is where the focus on the Wales household becomes relevant in much of the commentary. The roles of Prince William, Prince of Wales, and Catherine. Princess of Wales have increasingly been described as central to the monarchy's long-term future. Their public engagements often attract significant attention, and their presence is frequently associated with continuity and stability in public-facing royal duties. As a result, any expansion of responsibilities elsewhere in the family can be viewed through the lens of how it complements or contrasts with the visibility of the Waleses. In the case of James, Earl of Wessex, the discussion is less about direct comparison and more about how the wider structure of working royals may evolve over time. Some analysts suggest that King Charles III. His approach reflects a long-term planning mindset, particularly as the monarchy adapts to modern expectations of transparency, efficiency, and public engagement. From this perspective, formalizing limited roles for additional family members is not unusual, but part of a gradual process of defining who participates in public duties and in what capacity. At the same time, royal households are known for operating with a strong emphasis on internal balance. Even relatively small decisions can require careful coordination between different offices, private secretaries, and communications teams. This means that announcements, even informal or partial ones, are often managed cautiously to avoid misinterpretation or unnecessary speculation. In the current environment, however, speculation tends to spread faster than official clarification. The modern media landscape, combined with public interest in the royal family, means that any perceived change in structure can quickly become a wider narrative about influence, hierarchy, and future direction. Within that narrative, Queen Camilla's position is often discussed in terms of adjustment rather than transition. Since the beginning of King Charles III's reign, she has taken on an established public role, carrying out engagements related to literacy, domestic violence awareness, and other charitable causes. Her visibility has remained steady, though. Like all senior royals, her schedule is shaped by broader institutional priorities and the king's own commitments. It is in this context that some interpretations of the reported approval for James, Earl of Wessex's role have taken on added significance. Rather than being viewed purely as an operational decision, it has been discussed as part of a wider balancing act within the institution. However, it is important to note that much of this interpretation comes from commentary and analysis, rather than confirmed internal communication. Another factor that frequently appears in discussions about royal structure is the principle of gradual change. The monarchy is not typically subject to sudden organizational shifts. Instead, adjustments tend to happen incrementally, often over extended periods, and are shaped by a combination of tradition, public expectation, and practical necessity. From that standpoint, the idea of expanding limited responsibilities to additional family members such as James, Earl of Wessex fits within a known pattern of measured adaptation. Historically, members of the extended royal family have occasionally taken on roles that support the core working group, particularly during periods of transition or increased demand for public engagements. Still, even when changes are incremental, they can generate significant attention when viewed in the context of succession and long-term planning. King Charles III, now firmly established as monarch, is often seen as setting the framework for the next phase of the institution. That naturally leads to increased scrutiny of how each decision might influence the future structure of the monarchy under Prince William. Prince William himself, Prince of Wales, is frequently described in reporting as already playing a key role in shaping the public identity of the royal family. Alongside Catherine, Princess of Wales, his engagements often reflect a focus on modernization, mental health awareness, and community engagement. Their public presence is widely regarded as one of the most influential elements in the monarchy's current image. Because of that visibility, any changes involving other family members are sometimes interpreted in relation to the Wales's evolving position. This does not necessarily indicate competition or conflict, but rather reflects how attention naturally concentrates around the most prominent public figures within the institution. Meanwhile, other senior figures such as Princess Anne, Princess Royal, are often referenced in discussions about stability and institutional discipline. Known for her consistent workload and long-standing commitment to royal duties, she is frequently viewed as a model of continuity within the family structure. In commentary about internal decisions, her role is often associated with maintaining balance and supporting operational clarity. In the case of the reported approval involving James, Earl of Wessex, there is no confirmed indication of disagreement among senior royals. However, the very existence of discussion around it highlights how sensitive the topic of role allocation has become within the modern monarchy. Every adjustment, even one involving a relatively junior royal figure, is examined closely for what it might suggest about the direction of the institution as a whole. As the conversation continues in media and public commentary, the focus remains on how the royal family manages both tradition and adaptation. The monarchy operates within a framework that depends heavily on perception, continuity, and careful management of public roles. In that environment, decisions about responsibilities are rarely isolated events. They are part of a larger, ongoing process of institutional calibration. For now, the reported approval for James, Earl of Wessex, remains part of that broader narrative, rather than a formally confirmed structural change. It has nevertheless become a focal point for discussion about how King Charles III is shaping the monarchy's working framework, how responsibilities may be distributed in the years ahead, and how the roles of senior figures like Queen Camilla, Prince William, and Catherine, Princess of Wales, continue to evolve within that system. And as with many developments involving the royal family, the significance is not only in what is officially stated, but in how each decision is interpreted, debated, and connected to the wider story of the monarchy's future direction. Following the approval attributed to King Charles III for a new, limited royal role for James, Earl of Wessex, attention within royal reporting and commentary quickly shifted from the decision itself to its wider implications inside the institution. While the initial reports focused on the administrative nature of the role, the aftermath has been described in much broader terms, particularly in relation to internal dynamics, public interpretation, and the ongoing reshaping of responsibilities among senior members of the royal family. According to discussions circulating in media analysis and palace-focused commentary, the period following the approval was marked by heightened attention inside Buckingham Palace and related royal households, even when formal announcements are limited or carefully worded. Internal adjustments of this kind tend to generate a ripple effect across private offices, communications teams, and working schedules. In this case, the reported decision became a focal point for conversations about structure, hierarchy, and the long-term distribution of royal duties. Queen Camilla, Queen Consort, is frequently mentioned in commentary surrounding internal reactions, although there is no official statement regarding her personal response. Some interpretations suggest that any shift in the structure of working royals can carry additional weight for senior members of the household, particularly when it intersects with broader discussions about the future direction of the monarchy. These interpretations, however, are based on speculation and analysis, rather than confirmed detail from within the Royal Communications Office. What is more consistently observed is that changes involving the extended royal family often prompt reassessment of roles at multiple levels. Even when a decision appears limited in scope, such as the introduction of structured duties for James, Earl of Wessex, it can influence scheduling priorities, patronage distribution, and public engagement planning across the wider institution. This is partly due to the interconnected nature of royal responsibilities, where adjustments in one area can affect availability and visibility elsewhere. Within this context, Prince William, Prince of Wales, is often referenced as a central figure in discussions about long-term planning. Alongside Catherine, Princess of Wales, his role is widely regarded as increasingly significant in shaping the public identity of the monarchy. Their engagements continue to attract strong public attention, and they are frequently associated with continuity and modernization efforts within the institution. Because of this prominence, any expansion or redistribution of responsibilities among other family members is sometimes interpreted in relation to their evolving position. Catherine, Princess of Wales in particular, is often highlighted in analysis of public perception. Her engagements, charitable focus, and public visibility have contributed to a consistent image of stability in recent years. As a result, when additional working roles are discussed for other members of the royal family, commentators sometimes frame these changes within the broader structure that supports the Wales household's public function. This does not imply direct involvement in administrative decisions, but reflects how public attention naturally clusters around the most visible senior royals. Prince William's position is similarly central in institutional analysis. As heir to the throne, his perspective on the structure of the monarchy is frequently considered relevant in commentary about future planning. In discussions surrounding the approval for James, Earl of Wessex, some analysts have suggested that broader structural adjustments tend to align with the long-term objective of ensuring a manageable and clearly defined working royal core. However, these interpretations remain external analysis rather than confirmed internal policy statements. Another senior figure often referenced in these conversations is Princess Anne, Princess Royal. Known for her extensive workload and long-standing commitment to royal duties, she is frequently viewed as one of the most operationally active members of the family. In commentary about institutional structure, her role is often associated with continuity, discipline, and the maintenance of established royal functions. While there is no verified indication that she has been involved in decision-making related to the approval for James, Earl of Wessex, she is regularly cited in broader discussions about how the monarchy manages efficiency and duty allocation. Following the circulation of reports about the new role, attention also turned to how the monarchy manages internal communication during periods of heightened public interest. Historically, Buckingham Palace has maintained a cautious approach to confirming or denying speculative narratives, particularly when they involve evolving internal arrangements rather than formal constitutional changes. This approach is intended to preserve clarity and avoid contributing to the rapid spread of unverified interpretations. In the current media environment, however, even limited information can generate extensive public discussion. Royal reporting often exists in a space where confirmed details, informed analysis, and speculation coexist. As a result, the approval attributed to King Charles III has been discussed not only as an administrative decision, but also as part of a wider narrative about how the monarchy is adapting to modern expectations of visibility and accountability. Some commentary has framed the decision as an example of gradual institutional adjustment. From this perspective, the monarchy continues to evolve by carefully expanding or refining roles among members of the extended family when operational needs arise. This approach is consistent with the broader historical pattern of the institution, which typically avoids sudden structural changes in favor of incremental adaptation over time. Within this framework, the inclusion of James, Earl of Wessex, in a more defined capacity is interpreted by some observers as a practical response to workload distribution. As senior royals manage increasing public engagement schedules, there is ongoing discussion about how additional family members might support ceremonial or charitable duties without fundamentally altering the core structure of the monarchy. At the same time, the symbolic dimension of such decisions is never entirely separate from their practical function. Even limited roles can be interpreted as indicators of long-term direction, particularly during a period when the monarchy is closely associated with generational transition. King Charles III, as the current monarch, is often viewed as shaping the institutional framework that will eventually be inherited by Prince William. This naturally leads to heightened scrutiny of decisions that affect visibility and responsibility across the wider family. In the aftermath of the approval, media commentary also focused on how quickly narratives form around royal developments. Within hours of the initial reports, discussion expanded beyond the specifics of the role itself to include broader themes such as influence, succession planning, and the balance between tradition and modernization. This pattern is consistent with previous royal developments where limited factual updates often evolve into wider interpretative discussions. Queen Camilla's position in these narratives is frequently examined in terms of institutional adaptation rather than direct involvement in structural planning. Since becoming queen consort and later queen, she has undertaken a range of official duties, particularly in areas related to literacy, health awareness, and charitable support. Her public schedule reflects the broader priorities of the royal household, and like other senior royals, her engagements are shaped by institutional requirements rather than personal preference alone. In commentary surrounding the reported approval for James, Earl of Wessex, some interpretations suggest that any perceived shift in emphasis within the royal structure can be emotionally or strategically significant for senior members. However, such interpretations are not supported by confirmed statements from official sources and should be understood as external analysis rather than verified internal reaction. Meanwhile, King Charles III's approach continues to be described in analytical terms as methodical and focused on long-term sustainability. Since the beginning of his reign, he has been associated with efforts to maintain a streamlined working monarchy, ensuring that responsibilities are clearly distributed and manageable. From this perspective, the introduction of structured roles for additional family members can be seen as part of a broader administrative strategy rather than a reaction to any single event. The public response to the reported approval has also played a role in shaping the wider narrative. As with many royal developments, social media platforms and news commentary have amplified discussion beyond official details. This has contributed to a layered narrative in which factual reporting, institutional analysis, and public interpretation intersect. In such environments, the distinction between confirmed information and commentary can become less clearly defined for audiences following developments in real time. As discussions continue, attention remains focused on how the monarchy balances tradition with operational demands. The structure of the royal family has always required adaptation to changing circumstances, including shifts in public expectation, media scrutiny, and internal capacity. The reported approval for James, Earl of Wessex, is being discussed within that broader context, rather than as an isolated administrative update. Ultimately, the significance attributed to the decision varies depending on interpretation. For some, it represents a practical adjustment aimed at supporting the monarchy's workload. For others, it is seen as part of a wider pattern of gradual restructuring under King Charles III's reign. And for many observers, it simply reflects the ongoing reality that even relatively small changes within the royal household tend to attract considerable attention due to the institution's public role. What remains consistent across most analysis is that the monarchy continues to operate within a framework where perception is as important as procedure. Every decision, whether large or small, contributes to the evolving narrative of how the institution defines itself in the present and how it positions itself for the future. In that sense, the approval for a new role for James, Earl of Wessex, has become less about a single appointment and more about what it represents within the wider structure of the royal family. As with many developments involving senior royals, the longer-term impact of this decision will likely depend not only on its practical implementation, but also on how it is integrated into the ongoing evolution of the monarchy's public and internal identity.